Okay, let's talk about the the basic obligations of public service or the oath of public service. First, we're going to talk about the oath of public service. The oath of public service, mandated by 5 U.S.C. 3331, binds officials to support and defend the U.S. Constitution against all enemies, bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and faithfully discharge their duties without mental reservation. It is a solemn, legally binding commitment to the nation, not to a specific person or political party. Okay, let's get that. People, I've talked to people about this since I first read it, back when I was studying the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Magna Carta, etc. Okay, key components: support, defend, a pledge to uphold the Constitution against all foreign and domestic enemies. Anybody preaching or depriving of rights that's violating the oath. Allegiance, a commitment to bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the Constitution. No evasion. The obligation is taken freely without mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Meaning you can't violate the oath. You can't get into office and say, okay, now I run this shit, I'm going to do what I want. No, that's putting yourself above the law. Faithful service, commitment to well and faithful discharge of duties to the office. Affirmation, may choose to affirm rather than swear and omit. So help me God. Okay, so went over that, right? Okay, so they can't. It's their legally binding commitment to the nation, not a specific person or political party. So, unlawful orders are directives from military or legal authorities that violate the Constitution, U.S. law, or international law, such as targeting civilians, torture, or committing war crimes. Service members have a duty to disobey manifestly illegal orders, as obedience does not excuse criminal responsibility if a reasonable person would know the order is illegal. Okay. Violation of the oath of public service occurs when a public official fails to faithfully perform their duties, act against the Constitution, or breaks laws while in office. The breach can lead to removal, criminal crimes, fines, and disqualification from future duties. It often involves prioritizing personal or political gain over the law. So personal or political gain, that's against the law, okay? Negligence of duty, knowingly failing to perform duties imposed by law. Unlawful action, violate federal, state, or agency laws, regulations, or policies. Abuse of power, otherwise known as color of law. Using public office for private gain or engaging in unethical conduct. That's why I use the term under the color of law. That's what you're living with. You're living under the color of law. Public officials using public office for private gain or engaging in unethical conduct. Subverting the Constitution, engaging in or advocating for overthrow of the government by bypassing constitutional process. That's illegal, but it's happening. Specific acts, improperly access, sharing sensitive data such as Social Security information, or accepting bribes. Way to go, Doge. Constitution of violating the oath, removal from office through impeachment, recall, or administrative actions. Legal challenges, including perjury for filing false oaths, or felonies for advocating to overthrow the government. And that's happening a lot. Civil Penalties and fines, financial penalties for misconduct, disqualifications, prohibitions from holding future office, loss of benefits, potential loss of perks associated with office. Okay. Okay. I forgot where I was going with this. But either way, the main point I wanted to get to was yeah, all federal. That's basic. The oath of public service. Do all federal employees take an oath? That's the oath of public service. Presidential oath. He doesn't live up to that. What president does? What president ever did? Okay. So let's not forget ethics violations. Ethics violations in politics involve the abuse of public office for private gain, including campaign finance fraud, bribery, conflicts of interest, embezzlement. Recent examples show serious breaches as a U.S. representative facing potential expulsion for violating 25 ethic rules, including misuse pandemic relief funds for campaign purposes, campaign finance mismanagement, muting personal business and campaign funds, or failing to disclose donors, conflicts of interest. Remember, people, disclosure, that's a very important law you should look up. Disclosure, the mandatories of disclosure, it's the law. Bribery and corruption, accepting bribes, illegal gratitudes, or engaging in extortion. Like we're not witnessing that happen now. Abuse of power, utilizing non-public confidential information for private gain. I heard somebody got some insider information and bought a whole lot of oil stock just recently. Ethical lapses, lying, deception, and exploiting gaps in ethic law enforcement, says GC. Okay, so consequences, reprimand and expulsion, official reprimands, fines, removal from office, legal charges, prison sentences, 5 to 20 years, fines, and corruption, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures. Ethics issues for political candidates. What is political corruption and what you can do about it? Okay, House of Ethics. I'm pointing this out because there's some people that make comments as if, what if, and nobody's even trying. I've been trying for a long time to get these people to live up to the oath and charge each other with the penalties for violating the oath, violating the law, violating the basic oath, of basic obligations of public service. Okay, the basic obligations of public service require officials to treat public service as a public trust, placing loyalty to the Constitution, laws, and ethical principles above private gain. Core duties include acting impartially, avoiding conflicts of interest, protecting confidential information like our Social Security information and, insider stock trading, and ensuring honest, efficient performances, ethical conduct, adhering to standards that forbid using public office for private or giving private profit or giving preferential treatment to an organization or individual, conflicts of interest, avoiding financial interest to conflict with the official duties, and not engaging in outside employment that violates legal regulations. Gift restrictions, generally public service cannot solicit or accept gifts and prohibited sources. These are those seeking official action, doing business with the agency, or affected by the employee's duties. Impartiality and honesty, acting in a neutral, objective manner, and putting forth an honest effort in official duties. Confidentiality, not using non-public government information for financial transactions or personal gains. Responsible use of assets, protecting government property, and using it only for authorized purposes. It's a law. Okay, I'm just showing you all this so you can verify anything I'm saying. You can hold me to the letter of law on anything I said because I'm only reading it to you from the internet. I'll hold you to the letter of law on that as well in any court of law. I think we all know by now, well, we don't all know by now, but everybody should know the penalties for violating the letter of the law. There it is. I gotta shut off that notifications. Violating the letter of the law, strict literal interpretation of legal statutes carries penalties that vary significantly based on the specific law broken, jurisdiction, the severity of the offenses, literal legal framework. Even technical violation that does not necessarily break the spirit of the law can trigger full legal consequences. Common types of penalties. Civil penalties often involve financial repercussions for breaches of civil law or regulations, such as fines for operating without a license or failing to pay taxes on time. Criminal penalties arising from violations of criminal law. These can include incarceration, probation, or capital punishment. Examples of specific penalties, depending on the context, monetary fines ranging from minor infractions like jaywalking, speeding, or massive corporate asset or speeding to massive corporate assets. For example, OSHA violations can result in civil penalties up to $7,000 per fine. Imprisonment, misdemeanors typically carry sentences up to 1 year, while felonies can result in multiple-year prison terms or even life sentences. Court sentences, violation. Court-specific rules such as federal rules of Procedure 11 can lead to monetary directives in order to pay the opposing party's attorney fee. Loss of rights. Convictions of serious violations, felonies may lead to disenfranchisement, loss of voting rights, asset seizure. In some federal cases, property or material used in violation may be subject to seizure and forfeiture. Factors influencing severity. Courts, regulatory agency often consider specific factors when demanding the exact penalty with a legal range. Culpability, whenever the violation was unwillful, knowing, or accidental. Prior offenses. Repeat violators often face significantly higher fines and mandatory minimum jail time. Gravity of harm, the exact damage caused by violation, such as physical injury or significant loss. Okay, penalties for violating the letter of the law. And people argue with me, well, there's a difference between the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. Well, I use the spirit of the law to incite the letter of the law, so that way we all see, say, and hear the same thing. There will be no misinterpretation, which is called disinformation. Disinformation is illegal. Okay. Penalties for disinformation generally target specific harms rather than false content itself. At the First Amendment protects most speech in the U.S. Parties included up to $250,000 and imprisonment up to 5 years of life or death results. Or false hoaxes along with civil liability, defamation, potential sanctions, and potential administrative fines for breaking platform regulations. Federal false information hoaxes, conveying false information that is a crime and taking place like a bomb threat. Hoaxes can lead to substantial fines and up to 5 years in prison, which increases to life imprisonment if the action causes death. False statements to federal agents, intentionally lying to federal investigators is a felony, often resulting up to 5 years in prison and fines up to $250,000. Defamation and libel. Private parties can file lawsuits for false statements that damage their reputation, which can result in significant monetary damages. Professional discipline. Lawyers or professionals can face sanctions or loss of license for knowingly spreading false information, particularly if it disrupts judicial process. FCC, broadcasting false information cause immediate public harm. Falsely reporting a catastrophe is prohibited and can lead to penalties. State level transparency laws. New York Stop Hiding Hate Act, for instance, requires large social media platforms to report on their moderation policies for disinformation with penalties up to $1,000 per violation. First Amendment protection. U.S. government cannot generally regulate the truthfulness of speech, particularly political speech. Social media platforms are generally not held liable for user-generated content, meaning that they are not legally required to moderate fake news. It falls into freedom of speech. So you might want to look up these laws over here, down here at the bottom. You can still get somebody for ethics violations, disinformation, when lawyers and judges lie. That's disinformation, penalties for that. Okay, people, I'm going to let you go. Just wanted to hit you up with a few important laws that you aren't being told about, or the penalties for violating those laws. I'm not a lawyer. I didn't go to law school, but I read a lot of books. I started studying law in grammar school. Knew I had to be a lawyer. Or get rich and be able to have one on call. But take advantage of my disadvantage. What took me years to accumulate could take you at the most a year. Just visit me at Legal Reform on Facebook for more. Everything I post are nothing but laws and penalties for violating those laws on all your public servants. All right? It's nothing I came up with. I am not a wordsmith. I did not create these laws. I'm just perusing the internet and revealing them to you. Some idiot tried to accuse me of practicing law. I asked him if he was a lawyer. He said, why? I said, because if you were, you knew everything I was saying was right, and that means you aren't practicing law. You're practicing deception, using disinformation, violating the letter of the law. How is that not violating your oath? But either way, people, there's a way out of anything and everything when it comes to the legal system, as long as you use the laws against them. Use what they wrote against them. And hold them to the letter of the law as they would you in every court of law. Nothing but peace and love for you, folks. All right, may your Creator always be with you and rain many blessings. I wish you a long life, and good health. Have a good night.